Hey guys, here today to talk about director Hal Ashby. I think he's just one of the absolute greatest American filmmakers of the 20th century, particularly through his run throughout the 70s. It's just absolutely masterful. Particularly three films he made are just timeless masterworks. But I really like his distinctively British outlook on Americana vibes and energy colors. And it just has a very, his films generally have a very warm and cozy tone to them, usually funny comedy dramas. Like I feel like there's like you're usually funny, but you take them seriously. It's like the foundation that Wes Anderson would go on to further expand upon and further stylize. But I feel like the roots of a lot of that, I guess, indie filmmaking of just raw expression of just humanism and just characters just getting in situations, really, I think, spawns from Hal Ashby's influence. I think he's a really unique and important director. So to get into his films, we got Harold and Maude, which came out in 1971, and this is just a perfect love story. I love that so much the balance between a young pessimist and an elderly optimist. I think that just creates one of the most beautiful natural sparks imaginable because you can see how much they literally need each other. You know, it's like the a young pessimist is going to be joking around acting like he wants to kill himself and he's acting like he's all obsessed with death, but really he just wants someone around to spark his light up a little bit and kind of show him how to have a light, because maybe he really doesn't know how. And then Maud's like a grandma-like figure, but she's also like a girlfriend figure for him. And I think that it's just so beautiful the way their chemistry kind of works out. Like she kind of sees substance in him, and that kind of makes her like grow in a certain kind of way. And then she just spreads love and joy to Harold, and he just comes out a completely different, reformed kind of man for life, basically. So it's just really beautiful, really subtle in its directing and colorful characterization. Like it's just really masterfully told with the Cat Stevens soundtrack too. Oh, it's just absolutely wonderful. Like it's like bread and butter how naturally Cat Stevens fits in with this movie. Like it's much genius, much like how Simon and Garfunkel was for The Graduate. Yeah, and the music just goes really strong with this film. I mean, it also kind of just feels like it expresses what love really is in its most purest essence. You know, I think it cuts all the pretension. I guess just all like the friction, all like the things that I guess everything a lonely person would be looking for out of a love story in a film. Because it's like, yeah, there is like a loneliness, like I almost don't want this, but you really do want this kind of thing. That you don't want to really say it. You'd rather it kind of motivate you in a certain way. In a lot of ways, this is a great film that kind of speaks to how to like like you go through this experience, you meet this woman or person, you have a moment, experience, or just times that can kind of just shape who you are for a greater good and better. And this film is a lot of ways an expression of individualism and how to continue that spirit for yourself and spread it to other people. But yeah, it almost shows like the personal journey that ultimately leads to an impersonal understanding. It's really beautiful. Yeah, and it's tied with me as like stuff like Punch Drunk Love and like the Before trilogy. It's just the greatest, purest romance story I've seen. Again, it's just the way that it balances shades of cynicism and optimism that just makes it so endlessly cozy and charming. Like I just really love the balance portrayed behind like such a cynic and an optimist. I think that just makes for a really beautiful balance. Like and it's funny because I feel like I've been both of those throughout a lot of my life. Like I think I always have an optimistic spirit living in me, but I think as I get older, I definitely have acquired more cynicism, and I think I'll continue to do so. So it kind of like, but I see like the love and balance, harmony that's net between those two shades. Like they kind of need each other. This is just love in its purest essence. I mean, the way it's directed is just very influential, and the way that it's just very slow paced. Like it just really takes its time to capture these characters hanging out. The dialogue's often witty and silly, and this is just one of those films that's so unique because I feel like Hal Ashby had a unique rejection of just a lot of like brooding masculinity in his films. Like there's never really an overbearing masculine like I always feel like there's more of a feminine energy dominating his films. I think that's just really cool and beautiful. So it makes this just one of the maybe greatest romance films of all time. Just some like a lot of tear-jerking moments, sad moments, but behind all that, it's just very feel good, and ultimately just really leaves a good warm spark in your spirit. Makes you very funny too. Like, it's just really entertaining watching him just want to seem suicidal to other people to the point where it's literally cute. Like it's actually adorable. Maude just had all this endless love for life, like ridiculous amounts of optimism, but it just makes her kind of like out there and sporadic and kind of crazy. And you can almost say that Harold kind of gives her like a little bit of like someone to share that with. Someone to share that overwhelming joy. She's probably spent most of her life, just kind of keeping all that to herself, not really anyone that, probably a lot of people might see it too cuckoo, but inside there's just the best warm spirit imaginable. Um, yeah, and the atmosphere, it's just the jokes, everything about this film just feels organic. Visuals, I absolutely marvel the visual style of this film. I think it's just one of the best of all time. And regards to just capturing the philosophical outlook on life, it's that death is always an unstoppable force. I especially love how this is kind of portrayed in that extended take of the cemetery. But it's really just trying to encourage that you just live life to its fullest while you can, basically. And thankfully, I think Harold literally figures out how to live life to its fullest by influence of Maude. And, in the end, I won't say too much, but basically, it becomes the story of individualism. And yeah, finds himself. How can you always kind of live with that kind of spirit in your heart? 1973, he made The Last Detail. This is just one of the best buddy films I've ever seen, period. I mean, the entire film is just very relaxed and human the entire way through from start to finish. I mean, it's just one of Jack Nicholson's greatest moments. One of the best hangout films I've ever seen. And really, the entire film is just all about, this guy's about to get out of prison for like 8 years. So Jack Nicholson's just with this guy a couple other guys, and they're just all hanging out for a night, literally. The one that's going crazy, his name's Randy Quaid, the actor. I would say probably the one great film he's been in a lot of ways, but it's just actually a really great performance. So I know he went kind of crazy, but this is very substantial. Jack Nicholson's just completely on top of this game. I mean, it's interesting to note, I believe this is his favorite character he's ever played, and I think that's really interesting because here he kind of does a similar thing in The Cuckoo's Nest where he's just kind of like waking up the dead souls, in a lot of ways, and it's just kind of in his own goofy kind of way where it almost seems intrusive, but you end up kind of loving him more for it in the end. Because that's the thing about Jack Nicholson. When he's in a movie, he's always the part you're going to remember the most. Almost always. He's such a show stealer. I can't think of about any movies where he's not the dominating presence. I mean, it's really funny to me how that's so. Ultimately, I think this film's out to express a message of that friendship, can be extremely timeless, and it can happen in the most unusual way. Sometimes you don't really expect to get so close to people over just like one random little thing, but sometimes that can just cause a change for life in your perspective and just who you are based off the moment that you have with them. The moment that Jack Nicholson laid out here, like they're never going to forget this guy through their torment and their worst moments to come. In 1977, we got Coming Home. 1978, 1978, Coming Home. And I didn't really click with this one personally. I know this came out right when just every I think Hollywood just finally got the pass to make world films about Vietnam War, just war in general. And so they made Coming Home. We just like the Deer Hunter was coming out as well. Of course, Apocalypse Now would come out soon, but this one just really is like kind of just slow for the most part. It's not as interesting or warm as his other films that come. It just kind of feels like a less interesting rehash of the film Best Years of Our Lives, where like everyone's coming back home and everyone's a little crippled and just disconnected in general. And I think it's a film trying to find family and just moments while you can. And it's beautiful, like story. It definitely has enough interesting moments to make it worth watching. But overall, I didn't think it had the same kind of, I guess, just charisma to the characters. It felt like it was a very dull, straight, just kind of, just too straightforward in a way. Like a way that just doesn't really make it that memorable. But we got to get to my absolute favorite film he made in 1979, Being There. And what cracks me up instantly about this is that it's literally just that Dougie Jones subplot from the Twin Peaks: The Return. David Lynch's that's my favorite thing he ever made. But it's literally like that exact story that he goes through, which is just kind of like a story of just he's just kind of on his own planet, literally. Like he's just an alien on Earth. He's living in his own paradise, but he's really disconnected with society and other people. But somehow he just happens to get strangely to the right people, the right place at the right time. And he's kind of like hailed as his prophetic genius just for the timing of how he delivers his minimal lines. It's like in his head, he doesn't really think. It's just it's kind of like that classic story of just like, I don't know how I just got famous or what the hell, like all this attention kind of thing. This is kind of like my favorite example of that kind of story. And it just hurts how beautiful this film was the entire way through. I mean, for the first 20 minutes, you just really kind of get into the loneliness of this character and how isolated he really is and detached he is, really, because he's been, a gardener for decades, living completely alone. And then, these people come in and just kind of tell him it's time to leave. And he almost just doesn't really know what to say or do. He's just kind of, he just kind of keeps moving, honestly. It's kind of interesting. Like, you can tell he's facing up death in him. He's pretty willpowered. It's kind of beautiful. You can tell there's like a real disconnect with just like how he handles just like such a devastating loss in a lot of ways. And yeah, he's masterly portrayed by Peter Sellers. I mean, it literally is tied with Doctor Strangelove is his greatest work, I think. Um, again, and this just kind of leads into a lot of like things that almost seem like they should be intimidating. You got this kind of guy just roaming around in the big city, and it feels like anything goes kind of thing. But he just kind of happens to run into all the right people, and just kind of like say the right things at the right time, just by kind of retaining himself in a certain way. And he just ends up kind of like being this prophetic genius. Like it's a story of how like that happens and how he just ends up saving lives and impacting people through. Yeah, and he doesn't really do anything but watch TV all day. So it's kind of hilarious and beautiful the way it all plays out. It's equal to the film Harold and Maude. Honestly, I love this film even more. Perhaps it's even more personally resonating. But I just really fall in love with the amount of whimsy, the whimsy and whimsical tone behind all this, and just effective attention to detail. I mean, it's just so colorful and drawn out the entire way through. And I feel like the best way I describe Ashby is he's just very organic. I mean, when I watch this, I feel like there's just something very beautiful about it. It's like it reminds me of how like Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love kind of portrayed, this kind of socially just out of touch guy as like something of his own superhero. Like he's kind of like this in here too. Like he's kind of his own hero, and there is something of a hero living in every man. And sometimes it's kind of so that the outsider might know something, in the most bizarre kind of way. So it's like, yeah, give them a chance sometimes. You might find something better. So it's just a really beautiful story about that. Leaving an impact on other people in general, what it means to leave an impact on people. It also kind of makes me think of the things that 2001: A Space Odyssey, funny enough, by Kubrick. This is a completely different kind of film. Funny enough, this actually references it throughout. Or it's just like, yeah, you feel like this guy's like a monolithical, like heavenly kind of person. But yeah, he's just another person too. It's just really funny. Like all the dialogue, he's never really saying anything that profound, but it's just the way everyone kind of reacts to him. And you could almost say it's a bit of a satire on just celebrity worship in general, just like absurdity. Just like maybe he just happened to say the right thing at the right time, and everyone just blew up. He said it in a certain way. Like, yeah, and it really does remind me in general of a lot of like films to come, and a lot of like 90s, 2000s, especially with like Paul Thomas Anderson's kind of vision. But really, what fascinates me, and again with like Linklater, kind of has this effect on me too, where it's like I'm amazed that a director can get away with this little conflict and make a film this compelling and interesting. I think that's just something that's really profound and special about this. Yeah, you'll never forget it. Yeah, he's just a very memorable director in general, so I highly recommend checking him out.